Okay, good morning, everyone. I think we are ready to start. We are 6 minutes after 9, and we have quite a number of people attending the workshop. So, Mr. Dion Puven, I think you can start the meeting.
Hey, thank you, Flora. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the workshop on pharmacovigilance systems and related inspections. You are most welcome to this workshop that we can engage with you as industry regarding the recently implemented guidelines on pharmacovigilance systems as well as inspections. Taking us through this workshop today will be the pharmacovigilance unit manager. I'll ask her to switch her camera on so that you can see who she is. Her name is, for those that don't know, her name is Mafora Matlala. And then also Mr. Samu Inos Motsitela, who is the inspectorate unit manager. I'll just ask him to also just switch his camera on briefly, just so you know who he is. So today, the colleagues will be taking you through a presentation to facilitate discussions, and I wish us a very good, productive workshop. Thank you, everybody. Over to you, Flora and Samu.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Good morning once again. As highlighted, my name is Flora, and then just to start, I would like to indicate that there would not be a functionality of raising hands, but instead colleagues are welcome to type their questions in the chat function, and then we should be able to see everything and then respond accordingly. So I will just let my colleague, Mr. Moshitela, to start and then take over where relevant. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Samu Moshitela, the manager for Inspectorate. Actually, with this workshop that we've been doing for pharmacovigilance inspections, I think it's what we're going to have to try to highlight. What would be the process that we'll be taking throughout the inspections that we'll be conducting as we're going through. As we're going through our presentation, when we look at the vigilance legal basis, according to Regulation 40 of the Medicines and Related Substances Act, Act 101
Sorry,
of 19. Right?
I think we are one slide ahead. Venus, can you kindly go back?
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's fine. Sorry. Okay. The legal basis is based on the, as I indicated, this Act 101 of 1965 for the pharmacovigilance to incorporate all health products regulated by the authority. Vigilance is defined as the continuous monitoring and evaluation of safety, efficacy, performance profile, and management of any risk throughout the life cycle of the health product. The authority must, among other, in order to achieve its objective, to provide monitoring, evaluation, regulation, investigation, inspection, registration, and control of medicines and medical devices and substances. The functions of the authority is to ensure that the evidence of existence of new adverse events and reactions and interactions and signal emerging from post-marketing surveillance and vigilance activity are investigated, monitored, analyzed, and acted upon, and this achieved through vigilance. And also it ensures that compliance with existing legislation is being promoted and controlled through the process of active inspections and investigation. Next slide, please. According to the regulation, Regulation 40 According to Regulation 40 of the Medicines Related Substance Act, a person who have applied for registration for a medicine in terms of Section 15 of the Act as an HCR, or in respect of a medicine or scheduled substance, or is a holder in terms of the Section 22C1B, inform the authority in a manner within the time frame as determined by the authority in any of a new or existing quality, safety, or effectiveness concern related to any medicines and scheduled substance, including but not limited to adverse drug reactions and risk management activity associated with paragraph 1. A person who has applied for registration for medicines in terms of Section 15, a holder of medicine in respect of a scheduled substance, or a holder of a license in terms of Section 22C1B must maintain or have access to records and report in the case referred to subsection 1 of the above. Next slide, please. I think, Flora, I think maybe you can take over from here, please.
Okay, thank you, Enos. So with regards to the legal basis that Samu has actually indicated, so based on Regulation 40, then applicants or holder of certificate of registrations, they are then mandated to have pharmacovigilance systems in place, and therefore, as a regulator, we are therefore required to ensure that applicants comply with the requirements of Regulations 40, and this as well include the inspections rather, of pharmacovigilance systems. So we have therefore, as a regulator, developed Pharmacovigilance Systems Guidelines that is applicable to applicants and holder of certificate of registration to implement. So with regards to the Pharmacovigilance Systems Guidelines, there are different areas that have been highlighted or that are covered rather by the guidelines. And we have selected quite a number that we are of the opinion that it's very important to talk to with the applicants. We are anticipating to receive questions, but we did not receive any. So we will talk to what we deem to be important, and therefore we can have questions at the end of the sessions. So with regards to the pharmacovigilance system guidelines, then we cover the responsibilities and requirements of the HCRs or the applicants, the qualified person responsible for pharmacovigilance, or as well as the local pharmacovigilance officer, the pharmacovigilance system master file, pharmacovigilance quality system, subcontracting of PV activities, business continuity plan, and monitoring of performance and effectiveness of the PV system and the quality thereof. Next slide, please. So with regards to the responsibilities and requirements of the HCRs or the applicants, firstly, the applicants or the HCRs, they need to establish and maintain a quality assured pharmacovigilance system, and therefore develop, maintain, and make available upon request the PSMF that describes the pharmacovigilance system for medicines registered or marketed in South Africa. Have an appropriately qualified person responsible for pharmacovigilance to be responsible for the establishment and maintenance of the pharmacovigilance system, and therefore this person we refer to as the QPPV or the local PV officer, depending which one will be applicable. Establish and use a quality system that's adequate and effective for performing its pharmacovigilance activities, and finally develop and maintain product-specific risk management systems. So these are the responsibilities of the HCRs. So as we have highlighted that one of the requirements is for the HCR to have a qualified person responsible for PVs. So the responsible person for PV, according to our guideline and the requirements thereof, is that they need to be permanently employed by the HCR or the applicant, and they need to have a job description that details all the activities that they are responsible for in terms of pharmacovigilance, organizational chart. So on the organizational chart, it needs to indicate the reporting lines and their relations with other departments within the organization. So the QPPV or the PV officer, they should reside or operate in South Africa and operate in South Africa. And then once there has been an appointment of this QPPV or LPVO, then the authority needs to be notified about the appointment. And then in the guideline, we stipulate the timelines that the authority should be notified. And then there should be the notification. So there should be somebody appointing this QPPV so that it can be done by the responsible pharmacist or the HPC, the holder of certificate of registration themselves. Okay, and then the QPPV, then it shall be a healthcare professional with medicine, pharmacy, nursing, or any other healthcare professional degree. And then if not a healthcare professional, then they must have relevant scientific discipline together with experience and training in all aspects of pharmacovigilance. And then lastly, they must have access to a medically qualified personnel who would be their assistants in terms of performing their pharmacovigilance related activities. Next slide, please. So the responsibilities of the QPPV or local PV officer, the establishment, they include the establishment and maintenance of the HCR or applicant's pharmacovigilance system. They should have sufficient authority to influence the performance of the quality system and the pharmacovigilance activities, promote, maintain, and improve compliance with the legal requirements as stipulated in regulation. Issues or matters, and prepare and submit safety reports or documents such as PSUR, RMPs as required to the authority. So next slide, please. Furthermore, then the QPPV or the LPVO, they need to ensure that any request from the authority for additional information is provided promptly and fully, oversee the safety profiles of the company's marketed products and any emerging safety concerns, be involved in the review and sign-off of local protocols of post-authorization safety studies as agreed in the RMPs, have awareness of post-authorization safety studies requested by the authority, including the results of such studies, and provide input into the preparation of regulatory actions in response to the emerging safety concerns. Example there, we including variations, agent safety restrictions, notifications, and communication to patients and healthcare professionals. Next slide, please. So in the absence of the QPPV or the LPVO, then there should be a backup procedure in place. And the backup procedure should be accessible through the contact details that are used for the QPPV or the LPVO. The QPPV or the LPVO then should ensure that the backup person has all the necessary information to fulfill their role in their absence. And the backup QPPV or LPVO, they should reside in South Africa. And I know it's an issue that has been highlighted by number of applicants or HCRs. However, we will discuss it and then have knowledge on applicable South African safety monitoring legislation and guidelines and international standards for pharmacovigilance, demonstrate the knowledge of the key pharmacovigilance activities performed as part of the applicant or HCR pharmacovigilance system and how to implement them, and be trained on all pharmacovigilance related activities. Then we're moving from the QPPV, and then one of the functions then of the HCR is to ensure that they have the PSMF in place. So the PSMF is the Pharmacovigilance System Master File, and objectives thereof is to describe the pharmacovigilance system and support or document its compliance with the requirements, contribute to the appropriate planning and conduct of audits by the applicant or HCR, the fulfillment of supervisory responsibilities of the QPPV or LPVO, and of inspections or other verification of compliance by authority. Lastly, provides an overview of the pharmacovigilance system, which may be requested and assessed by authority during medicines registration application or post-authorization. Next slide, please. So with regards to the pharmacovigilance system master file, because it's quite a lengthy requirement in the guideline, we did not necessarily go into specifics. So we thought if we were to receive questions, then we will address specific questions. But then we are just highlighting the contents of the PSMF and then just detailing what should be the contents without going into finer details of each. So the content should reflect the global availability of safety information of medicines marketed in South Africa, presenting information on the pharmacovigilance system applied at global, regional, and local levels. So the contents thereof should include the cover page with details, maybe a little about the PSMF itself, and then the details of the qualified person responsible for pharmacovigilance, the details of the organizational structure of the company that holds the certificate of registration, details of all the sources of the relevant safety data, details of all electronic computerized systems and databases, details of PV processes, details of performance of all drug safety systems, details of quality systems related to pharmacovigilance, and the annexures thereof. So we will not go further into individuals. And then the presentation of the PSMF, the format and the layout. So the PSMF should include documents that describe the pharmacovigilance system. And it should be written in English, indexed in a consistent manner, and allow easy navigation to the contents. So the information should be succinct, accurate, and reflect the current system in place, be legible, complete, provided in a manner that ensures all documentation is accessible and allow full traceability of changes. Reference existing SOPs in the applicant or HCR's quality management systems, such as change control and computer systems validation, etc. The use of electronic bookmarking and searchable text is recommended. Documents such as copies of signed statements or agreements, they should be included as appendices and described in the index, and the PSMF may be in electronic format. Actually, we prefer an electronic format. However, there should be a condition that clearly arranged printed copy should it be required. But at this point in time, we prefer the electronic format. Then with regards to the PSMF, so we have foreign marketing authorization holders or applicants who will have the global or the EU PSMF, and that is acceptable. However, the global PSMF then should reflect the global pharmacovigilance system, and in addition to that, they should have a South African annex containing country-specific content for the pharmacovigilance system on the national level. And when requested, both of these PSMF should be made available. And the local annex, then they should include the contact details, qualifications, CV, job descriptions of the local PV officer, the lists of contracts and agreements relevant to pharmacovigilance on national level, list of pharmacovigilance relevant SOPs on national level, list of pharmacovigilance performance indicators and their current results on national level over the past year, list of pharmacovigilance audit and their findings for company office on national level over the past 5 years, and list of products authorized under authorization in South Africa covered by the PV system, indicating which of them have additional risk minimization measures or additional pharmacovigilance activities. Then as well for the foreign image represented in South Africa through agent, importer or distributor and have no operating office in SA. So the global PSMF should also reflect the pharmacovigilance system on a global level. And then the agent or distributor in SA should have and maintain a PSMF providing the description of the pharmacovigilance in integration with the MHS pharmacovigilance system. and according to the safety data exchange agreements in place between both parties. Next slide, please. Okay, so with regards to pharmacovigilance quality system now, this is defined as all the characteristics of the system that are considered to produce outcomes relevant to the objectives of pharmacovigilance, covers organizational structure, responsibilities, procedures, processes, and resources of the pharmacovigilance system, as well as appropriate resource management, compliance management, and record management. So the pharmacovigilance quality system should be based on all of the following activities: quality planning, quality adherence, quality control and assurance, and lastly, quality improvements. Next slide, please. So with regards to the responsibilities for the quality system, there should be appropriately qualified and trained personnel who should be available for the performance of pharmacovigilance activities as highlighted before. Then the managerial staff of the applicant or HCR, they should be responsible for ensuring the following with regards to the quality system. Firstly, the organization documents the quality system. Documents describing the quality systems are subject to document control in relation to their creation, the revision, the approval, and the implementation thereof. Then furthermore, there should be adequate resources available, those that are trained with regards to pharmacovigilance. Suitable and sufficient premises, facilities, and equipment are also made available. Adequate compliance management, adequate record management, reviewing the pharmacovigilance system, including its quality system at regular intervals in risk-based manner, and ensuring that mechanism exists for timely and effective communication, including escalation processes of safety concerns, identifying and investigating concerns arising within an organization regarding suspected non-adherence to the requirements of the quality and pharmacovigilance system, and taking corrective, preventive, and escalation actions as necessary. And lastly, ensuring that audits are performed accordingly. Next slide, please. So as part of the quality system, then comes training of the personnel for pharmacovigilance. So here we also took a little bit of what we thought would be relevant in the absence of concerns or questions from the applicants. So all personnel involved in the performance of pharmacovigilance activities should receive continued training related to their roles and responsibilities. The training plans and records for documenting, maintaining, and developing the competencies of personnel should be kept. The training should support the continuous improvement of relevant skills, the application of scientific progress, and professional development. All staff members of the applicant or the HCR should receive and be able to seek information about what to do if they become aware of the safety concern. So there should be PV-related training for all staff members. There should be a process in place within the applicant or HCRs to check the training results in the appropriate levels of understanding and conduct of pharmacovigilance activity for the assigned tasks and responsibilities, or identify unmet training needs. Next slide, please. So as part of the quality system, then we look into the management and reporting safety data. So the applicants or HCRs should have a system to collect and collate adverse reaction reports, have a procedure to ensure that the QPPV or the LPVO is able to obtain information from the adverse reaction database in order to respond to agent requests for information from the authority at any time requested. Furthermore, the QPPV should be aware of the validation status of the database, including any failures that may occur or that occurred during the validation, and the corrective actions that have been taken to address these failures. So the QPPV should also be informed of significant changes that are made to the database. So Example that includes changes that could have an impact on pharmacovigilance activities. Next slide, please. So the record management. So with regards to the record management, it should support the maintenance of the quality of pharmacovigilance data, including their completeness, accuracy, and integrity, timely access to all records, effective internal and external communications, and retention of documents relating to pharmacovigilance system and the conduct of pharmacovigilance for individual health products in accordance with applicable retention periods. Enable the traceability and follow-up of adverse reaction reports, and storage and processing of pharmacovigilance data to ensure data security and confidentiality. So this speaks to information being restricted to certain individuals. Then the documentation. With regards to the documentation, then all elements, requirements, and provisions adopted for the quality system should be documented in a systematic and orderly manner in the form of written policies and procedures, such as quality plans, manuals, and records. Furthermore, documentation of pharmacovigilance quality system should include, we might have not included everything here, but yeah, we included what we thought would be more relevant now: organizational structures and tasks allocated to all personnel and authorities directly involved in PV, training plans and records, instructions for the compliance management processes, appropriate instructions on the process to be used in case of urgency, including business continuity, performance indicators where relevant and applicable, reports of quality audits and follow-ups, including their dates and results, the methods of monitoring the efficient operation of the quality system, a record management policy, records and reports relating to the facility and equipment, including functionality checks, qualifications and validations, records of deficiencies and deviations, corrective and preventive actions taken, and the effectiveness thereof. Next slide, please. So with regards to business continuity plans and disaster recovery, the business continuity plan should be established in a risk-based manner and should include, one, provisions for events that could severely impact on the organization's staff and infrastructure in general, and the backup systems for agent exchange of information, be it internally or with any other third party or even the regulator. For the monitoring of performance and effectiveness of PV and its quality system, then there should be processes to monitor the pharmacovigilance performance. They should include reviews at regular intervals of the systems, the audits, compliance monitoring using performance indicators, inspections, evaluating the effectiveness of the actions that were taken as well. So we did not necessarily look into specific areas that needs monitoring, but we just said it in general. So with regards to the subcontracting, applicants or HCRs, they may subcontract certain activities of the pharmacovigilance systems to third-party organizations. What I need to put upfront is the fact that in the systems guideline, it includes the role of the QPPV or LPVO, which was an oversight from our side, but in the ADR reporting guidelines, then it's specific to say not including the role. So we will amend the systems guidelines to make sure that it's in line with the post-marketing reporting of adverse drug reactions guideline. So I need to indicate that this excludes the role of the QPPV or the LPVO. Hence, there's a need for a permanent appointment of the QPPV or LPVO for each and every applicant. And our apologies for that. Furthermore, the applicant or the HCR shall nevertheless retain the full responsibility for the completeness and accuracy of the PSMF, for the fulfillment of all pharmacovigilance tasks and responsibilities, and the quality and integrity of the pharmacovigilance system, and ensuring that an efficient quality system is applied in relation to the subcontracted tasks. I think this is my last slide. Then I will allow my colleague Samu to take over with regards to the summary of the GVP inspections. Thank you.
Thank you, Mafora. On the summary of the GVP inspections, actually, when we come into the inspections, these are the key areas that we look at. We look at the roles and the responsibility of the QVPP and LPVO and backup procedures. We look at the PSMF, and we look at the organizational charts, and as well as the safety data exchange agreements. We look at the QMS within the PV SOPs, compliance monitoring, PV audits, deviations management, and CAPA systems. We look at training, we look at archiving, computerized system of the PV activity, business continuity, and disaster recoveries. We look at adverse event management, collection, spontaneous, solicited, validated, follow-up, and processing and data entry. We look at literacy website and media screening. We look at periodic aggregate reports and signal management. We look at a risk management plan and risk minimization. We look at safety communication. We look at the regulatory requirements. We look at non-interventional studies and activities. We look at sales force, marketing. We look at medical information and product quality. Next slide, please. Now, in the conclusion, when we did the when we started with the process with the PV system, there are a number of things that we actually discovered that we still need to work on. We have realized that there are still some outstanding guidelines that we still have to be put in, the risk management plan and the signal management guideline, which are not part of that guidelines that we published, as well as what we also been doing within SAHPRA. We have been working on establishing the good vigilance practice inspection unit team. And then so what we're looking into that to see if we can implement it in a period of 6 months to 12 months, that everything should be sorted within us, how we work that. And then one other people may ask themselves to say, what is the implications when I have the good vigilance inspections that are non-compliance? If you look at the regulation 40, it indicates that those people, all the companies that are being licensed in terms of section 22C1B, they will be obliged to be compliant to this. This will have a huge impact into the license. That may lead to say that we might have to enforce that the license be suspended or license be revoked based on this. And then also we did look at the outcome of the PV inspections. What we picked up is that during the inspection is that there are still some areas there where industry still needs to improve on in terms of the reporting, because of we can see even some of the questions that are already being raised to say where must be the LPVO officer be reporting. We have picked up all those during the workshop, so during our pilot study. So even though it's not even so much that we did, we're still going to see how we can improve into the systems. Next slide for me, please, Sasani. Okay, I think in respective to that, I think we would like to say thank you very much, everybody. Then I think what we will just maybe to go to the question and answer sections. So I don't know how we're going to deal with this, Flora.
Okay, I'll read out the questions and then we can respond. Okay, the first one is, okay, I would like to apologize. There's an indication that my voice was breaking at some point. So I hope, Joy, you actually heard what I was saying. Leanne asked that please would it be possible to send us a copy of the presentation? Yes, definitely we will do that. So I'm not sure if you'd like us to do this through the ITG or maybe share your email so that we can share the presentation with everybody who's interested. That is still fine. Can the PVO be permanently employed by the global organization, not on local marketing company payroll, and reside and operate in South Africa? Can the PVO be permanently employed by the global organization, not on local marketing company payroll, and reside and operate in South Africa? Okay, I think I'll let my superiors to assist me with this one. But my understanding, or Samu, maybe you can try to respond. But my understanding is that we will be having a local marketing company in South Africa registered. Why should the PV officer then be employed internationally or globally while we have a local office in South Africa? And our guideline, they stipulates to say they need to be employed by the as a local PV officer in the country. So I'm not sure if this can be acceptable. So I would let maybe other colleagues to weigh in on this. Samu, are you able to assist?
If we look at the licensing, with respect to the licensing, we have a responsible pharmacist who is being the person that is being registered or within the license. And then now, in terms of who pays who the salary, SAHPRA cannot get involved into that. But in issues that are relating to PVO or activities that are happening to PVO, the local responsible pharmacist will have to know what is going on into that. So when we talk about permanently employed, I'm not sure what that means, especially when you say globally, because when you say employed globally, it means your salary is, you're getting your salary from overseas. You are not in the payroll, and then, but you are residing and operating in South. When you say you are operating in South Africa, we're expecting that all the activities that are relating to pharmacovigilance, that has the responsible pharmacist need to have to know, because of it will have an impact on the license when the license is being suspended. I think that's how I can address it in that way. Thank you, Flora.
Okay. Janine, I'm not sure if you answered. If not, you can ask further questions below. Then the next questions, are there formal trainings for the LPVO which SAHPRA could recommend? Will training by the company's global PV be acceptable? Okay, so from the PV's perspective, yes, training by the company's global PV will be acceptable. However, there are courses that are being offered by the Uppsala Monitoring Center in Sweden. And I know for applicants, they are fee-based. But those are the courses then that we can recommend that they should be taken by the PV officer. So those are the courses that we actually are aware that they do exist and then will be applicable in this case. So we do recommend that PV officers do take those courses that are offered by the UMC. Colleagues, I'm not sure if maybe there's more to add on these questions from internal. Okay, I don't see anyone's hand. Then the next question, what is the difference in the QPV? I think it's meant to say QPPV and LPVO in terms of qualifications. So from the guidelines that we have issued, both maybe we should actually clarify the issue of the QPPV and the LPVO. So we do have marketing authorizations that have QPPV that are based elsewhere around the globe. And however, we still require that the very same marketing authorization should have a local PV officer based in South Africa as previously highlighted. So in terms of the qualifications, then locally there will not be a difference. So they will still be the same. And then we also have the companies that maybe are South African companies. They don't have both the QPPV and the LPVO. So either of the two, it's still acceptable. So it's upon the companies to decide locally whether they want to have a QPPV or just an LPVO, for as long as they have a responsible person who's responsible for pharmacovigilance. So each and every applicant should have either a QPPV or LPVO, locally based. That's what we recommend according to our guidelines. Okay, notification frequency. Will once off QPPV notification suffice? Yes, truly. Once off is acceptable. We don't need to, unless if maybe there's a change in terms of the QPPV, that's when you need to re-notify the authority of the new person. Okay, then Kamantha, should the notification of the LPVO be submitted directly to the PV unit and using a standard letter? I'm not sure if we have anyone from registrations here. Mr. T, I don't know if you can assist whether this requirement is applicable in terms of the dossier submission initially as well. But for the PV unit, yes, definitely. Please do send it directly to us. And then I will allow anyone from the registrations who maybe can assist in terms of the registration if it's included in the dossier as well as part of the initial submission, but I think it is. Samu, do we know?
No, I'm not sure about that.
Okay, so we can just check with colleagues from registration, but I think it's part of the submissions with the initial submission of the dossier as well. But then yes, to the PV unit, yes, kindly send it directly to us. We do have dedicated email addresses that we're sharing on the guidelines and on the website, so please use the relevant one. Then Mohadi says, would you like to be notified of the backup QPPV? Not necessarily. However, if you do want to let us know, yes, definitely. But what we're indicating is that the contact details that we have for the QPPV should be applicable to the backup. So hence, there's not necessarily a need for us to be informed of the backup QPPV. Will the EU SMPF be acceptable or would a local PSMF be required? I think we addressed this to say if you have EU-based PSMF, then there should be a local annex taken to the local system and both should be submitted upon request. In terms of the organogram charts, in some companies, the PV officer reports into global and not into the local office. So the organogram charts will not reflect the link of PV and internal stakeholders. However, there are SOPs in place which document this interaction. Is this acceptable? I'm going to allow my colleagues to attempt to respond to this. Samu?
I think I've highlighted with the issue of the impact that it will have on the licensing if the PV officer is not even, there's no link between the PV officer and the person who is registered as a license, in the license as a license holder, well, that is the responsible pharmacist. So I think they need to work around the organizational chart to make sure that how is that addressed in terms of the organizational chart, to say all the activities that are the pharmacovigilance are addressed locally, and then they need to be able to differentiate what is their company policies in terms of how do they report globally, but as a requirement for in terms of the licensing, there will be that requirement to say somehow the PV officer to be reporting to the responsible pharmacist, because of it will have an impact on the license. That's what I've highlighted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope, Anastasia, you answered. And then Denise indicate that there is an inconsistency between the statement regarding subcontractors in the guideline PV systems in section 8.1 and 13.1, as well as with the same instructions in the, I think I spoke to this. Thank you very much. We will definitely amend accordingly. And then Anita, 8.2.4 of the guideline, the QPPV local pharmacovigilance officer shall receive a formal training in pharmacovigilance recognized by the authority. Will a list of recognized courses? I think we also spoke to this earlier. The very same question came. How does one become an accredited PV auditor? Sarisha Naika. Okay, I'm going to let this to my superiors, Mr. Dion and Mr. Tlotla. And maybe some any accreditation in terms of PV audits?
The PV system is a new system in us. I think what we'll see is that, as you highlighted about the trainings that are being provided by the in Switzerland. So I think if somebody understands what is the requirements in PV, and then it becomes easier for you to know the requirements in pharmacovigilance, so what is it that you needed to be. So to say that you are a PV auditor, like what they're doing in the SABS and all of that, on all those organizations, we do not have that system in place that will say we accredit you as a PV officer locally. But now with the knowledge that you have, and then the appointment that you will be given, that is what will be the way that to go forward in terms of the training that you would have been received.
Okay, maybe to also highlight in terms of PV audits, Samu, thanks for that. There are courses that WHO are also offering in terms of PV audits that will also assist in terms of accreditation for PV auditors. So I think colleagues can also go on the WHO website and then undertake such courses. And then, Vanessa, may you be so kind as to share the presentation and the recording after the meeting. The recording, I'm not sure, but the presentation definitely we can share. And then, can SAHPRA offer training on PV in Tabiseng? Okay, Tabi saying, yes, SAHPRA can offer training, but it will be a long-term goal, not on an immediate basis. And I see there's thumbs up there from 2 more people that like the idea. So we will look into seeing how we can do that and then communicate. But please note that it will not be on an immediate basis. It will have to be properly planned, and then as well identify the relevant stakeholders that can also be part of the training. So yeah, it's an idea that we welcome, and then we will look into that. Okay, is this regulation covering medical devices as well? I will allow Samu to talk to this.
If you look at how the regulation 40, it includes medical device. So initially you will start with the pharma products, and then as we build up, we will be covering with the medical device, like what we currently been doing. We are actually initially doing inspections on pharma products. We have not yet conducted inspections on medical device. There is a plan there is something that we've been discussing about how we are going to be doing the medical device inspection. So the regulations are covering medical device, but however, because of the resources that we currently have, we're still going to focus in one area, and the other area will cover it at the later stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Samu, for that clarification. Please clarify the difference between QPPV and LPVO. I think I did. There's a definition for QPPV in 115, but no definition for LPVO, and Section 8 states in the absence of a QPPV, a local PV officer must be available. We will look at that statement. However, I think I spoke to the clarification between the two. There's actually not much of a difference. It just depends on the company how they want to name people. So the QPPV normally for other companies would be based globally, and then locally, then they will have an LPVO. While others, the local companies specifically, then they will have a QPPV stroke LPVO. But we will just look at that section, Lynette, thanks for that, just so we can clarify it and just to eliminate any confusion that may arise from it. Okay, Sasani, please take note of that. Do you consider reliance on any of other recognized regulators? I'm going to allow my superior to answer this one. Mr. T and Mr. Dion. Okay, Samu, yes, please.
In terms of Section 2B2, the authority may alliance with any other regulator, that's reliance. So definitely we can do the reliance on this model.
Can we speak reliance specifically, Samu, to PV, maybe PV inspections?
PV inspections is more about the inspection report that we normally would be sharing with the other regulatory authority. We'll be doing the desktop review on an inspection that was performed. If, let's say, for instance, WHO comes and perform an inspection at your site, that is a WHO inspection. But however, that report can be shared with us, and we can do reliance on that inspection report. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Samu. Is a person allowed to be QPPV for 2 different companies in case of the organization that has sister companies within it? Thank you. That's Linda. Samu, I'm going to allow you to speak to this as well. In relation to the RPs.
Okay. When a company registers products in 2 different companies, and then in the worst case scenario, they would register duplicates in 2 different companies in their within their same unit. So the requirement is each and every HCR will have the LPVO. So in that scenario, it becomes a little bit tricky because of if the requirement is you are a PVE officer for company A, and then I want to be a PVE officer for B, C, D, E, F. That will be very problematic. So the advice that we'll be giving is you need to be looking at having a PV officer of each and every HCR in terms of the license that you've been given. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samu. I hope Linda is answered. Claudette, can the PV quality system be part of the overall company quality management system, or must it be a separate document? Samu?
Normally, when we look at the QMS system, we're looking at it in terms of when we do the inspections, when we do the HCR. And in somehow, the responsible pharmacist will have to know what is also happening into that system. So for the quality management system, it needs of the previous system needs to be talking to the quality management system of the company. So that has to be incorporated into that. To separate it, I don't know how you're gonna separate it because of the responsible pharmacist will have to know what is happening in pharmacovigilance.
Okay, thanks, Samu, for that. Then Janine says, with regards to the summary of GVP inspection slide, do the guidelines distinguish between solicited and spontaneous reports? So I will respond to this one. So with regards to the post-marketing reporting, yes, there's a distinction between the spontaneous reports and the solicited. And then when we conduct these GVP inspections, we do look at different mechanisms that are actually employed by the company to get their reports. So if it's solicited, then we look at that as well and all the processes that are involved, and the spontaneous as well, what processes are involved as well, and then how is data collated ultimately. So I don't know, Janine, if you are answered, but then the ADR guidelines does distinguish that. Okay, then Muriel, what about veterinary products? Are they also covered by this guideline, or will there be a specific guideline for veterinary products? Samu?
We have, I think, category A for human use, and I think we have category B for veterinary use. So in that, when you register a medicine, we're looking at the safety of both human as well as animals. So the system that we establish should cover for both. Now, if the company feels that they have, some companies do have different units where they say you specialize in human, you specialize in veterinary. In that instance, then you'll have two different systems, but also they must be talking to the pharmacovigilance system that is currently guideline that is being in place. So we don't differentiate. We're still looking at animals as part of our existence into our global environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samu. Then Anita, by when would applicants be expected to meet all the requirements, including a PSMF? And then the next question as well, it goes with that, is the implementation 6 to 12 months from September 2022? Samu?
Is Doshan here? Because I think we were speaking about the 6 to 12 months yesterday. Doshan? Okay, maybe he's somewhere else. So while we put,
I'm multitasking here, my friend. So sorry.
Yes, I know.
Yes, the question was, my apologies. Yes,
it's 6 to 12 months for the implementation of the PSMF and the guideline.
Yeah, no, it's something that we will discuss internally, because as matters stand, the WHO expect us to implement this like last week already. So it's something that we'll have to discuss and issue a communique in terms of the implementation plans for this guideline, recognizing it's being new, and also recognizing that we normally allow for some time for implementation with new requirements. So yeah. Does that answer the question? I didn't get the whole question. Maybe I should look at the question.
It does partly, Mr. T. However, the question then is it from September or from May? Because the guidelines have been published since May. So the 6 to 12 months, will it be applicable from September or from May?
No, it will have to be applicable from a later date, after all the engagements have been done.
Okay, then it should be September.
And that
okay.
And that would be September.
Okay, no, that's clear. Thank you so much.
If we align on the period between implementation and publication.
Okay.
Because we haven't aligned on the 6 months or the 12 months, have we? It still needs to be discussed internally.
Yes, Mr. T. It still needs to be discussed, but then Samuel, let me allow you to speak further on what Mr. T has highlighted. You wanted to say something.
Okay.
No, I was because of he seemed like he didn't understand the question initially. Then I said it's fine. That's correct. That's what we talked about yesterday. That's fine.
Okay. All right. No, that's fine. So as I highlighted, colleagues, then we will issue a communique just to clarify the implementation of the guideline, but the advice is that please work on your system so that when the communique is issued, then you are a few steps ahead. Mr. Dion?
Thank you, Flora. So yes, we are taking into account the fact that these are new guidelines and there will be a period for full implementation, and that sort of period for full implementation talks about our expectations from applicants. So when we're talking about expectations, what that means is that we're not going to not inspect applicants. We are going to inspect applicants, but in terms of full expectations of to the guidelines, that will be the period that we will be expecting applicants to start complying with the particular guidelines. So key message here is that we will be conducting inspections, but in terms of the full expectation of implementation to the guideline, that will take some time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Proven. Then the next question is, does this mean that the local person must be fully employed by the ACR? There are many pharma companies who are represented by local companies, the local HCR, who have global PV systems and a global QPPV, but subcontract the local roles. That's the local PV officers to persons in the other countries where they do not have registered offices such as South Africa. Is this no longer allowed, even if the subcontracted person is appropriately qualified. Okay, let me reread the question. Does this mean that the local person must be fully employed by the HCR? Then the answer is yes, based on what we highlighted earlier and the explanation provided by myself and Mr. Mushitela. There are many pharma companies who are represented by local companies who have global PV systems and a global QPPV, but subcontract the local roles to persons in the other countries where they do not have registered offices such as South Africa. Is this no longer allowed, even if the subcontracted person is appropriately qualified? Samuel, are you able to respond further to this based on what we highlighted earlier?
I think what I've highlighted is the issues relating the link to the license. But now, when with this the subcontract, so I think one of the participant has talked about the two guidelines that are not talking to each other. That says it allows that and allows the other one. So I think this one we will maybe give more clarity into this manner in terms of the what will we require for the local PV.
So with regards to that, we have highlighted that the companies, then they need to have a local PV person responsible for PV in South Africa, even if they have subcontracted some of the activities elsewhere. So there's still a need for the company to have a local PV officer, because we are not subcontracting the role of the PV officer, but the activities, the pharmacovigilance activities. So Denise, I'm not sure if we are answering you or you've got further questions. If you do, please do type. But yes, then we are saying then there should be a local PV person for each and every applicant in South Africa. If the QPPV and the LPVO have to have the same qualification and requirements, what is the difference between these two roles? So we have highlighted earlier, then there is no need for a company to have both, but they should have at least one, and that one person should be locally based, as highlighted not so long ago. I would understand that if the QPPV would be located out of South Africa, that an LPVO as local contact would be required, but if both have to reside, no, both don't have to reside in South Africa, and the applicant does not necessarily have to have both. So, and both have to have the same qualification, then I don't see the difference between, okay, I hope I'm clarifying the confusion there if there's any. The applicant, they don't need to have both, but there's a need to have a PV responsible person locally based, whether it's supposed to be your QPPV or what you call the local PV officer, then that's upon the applicant, but there should be a person responsible for pharmacovigilance who's in the full employment by the applicant and locally based. I hope I'm clarifying your confusion, Kirsten. Okay. Okay, I see email addresses then to share the presentation. Why is the emphasis on the QPPV being a healthcare professional? In most cases, the QPPV is a scientist who does have access to a medically qualified person. I know that I think it was supposed to say the guidelines state that they will accept the QPPV who's not a healthcare professional, but is suitably trained. But the wording in can be limiting to scientists in industry currently covering this role. We are not necessarily limiting to healthcare professionals, and hence we have included that other scientifically qualified persons can also take the role, provided they have access to medically qualified personnel. And the reason why maybe we're putting healthcare professionals before others is because those are the people who will have the relevant experience and understanding with regards to medicines and safety. And hence, a scientifically qualified person, they need to have access to a medically qualified persons. That's the reason why we're putting the healthcare professionals first, because they have the relevant background in terms of understanding the medicine safety, quality, efficacy, and performance thereof. So I'm not sure if you want to add on that as well.
No, that's fine, what you said.
Okay, thank you. And I hope Anastasia will responding, but we're not limiting to healthcare professionals only. Please don't take it that way. Are you expecting any challenges on both industry and authority side? Asma, I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question, or colleagues, if you are, please do respond. Are you expecting any challenges on both industry and the authority side? From my side, I would indicate that based on what Mr. Mashitela has said from the pilot, the tool that we are to use in terms of inspections, which is our guidelines, have actually proven to be effective in delivering its mandate. And I think this workshop as well, it's actually trying to clear any misunderstanding that may be in the guidelines, so that there can be revisions for the guidelines, so that we, both the authority and the industry, we can align so that we can limit any challenges. And challenges will always be there, but then we should always try to mitigate against any challenges that we come across. So I'm not sure if Asma, I'm responding appropriately to your questions, or you need further clarity. Will this regulation cover complementary medicines? Mr. Mshitel, I'm going to leave this to you.
I can ask Mr. Puven to answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, so in terms of the regulation talks about the holder of certificate of registration. Complementary medicines in the majority, except for those that actually went the registration route, have not yet been registered. So there's no way that we can actually say that complementary medicines outright are part of this exercise at the moment. Keeping that in mind, once complementary medicines do become registered, we would need to start looking at those holders of certificates of registration. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Puven. Then I have Lynette. Are there specific requirements for the summary of the PSMF? Is there a template for the summary? Lynette, I don't think we have a template, but we have highlighted in the systems guideline the areas that needs to be included in the PSMF. So the summary, basically, it's as Mr. Mushitela has highlighted, the areas that we touch on when we do the inspections. So I don't know if I'm answering you or you still have further questions, but then the PSMF, we fully explain it in the guideline to say which area needs to be covered when compiling that PSMF. But should there be a need for a template, then we can also look into that. Okay. What is SAHPRA's expectations at the current point in time in terms of PV related to unregistered complementary medicines? I think Mr. Puven spoke to that. Mr. Puven, I don't know if you want to expand more on that.
No, I think I've covered the question. It's about registration. The holder of certificate of registration is what the regulation talks about.
Okay. Thank you. If RPP resides outside South Africa, whereas Deputy RPP resides in South Africa, is this acceptable by SAHPRA? Mr. Mshute.
Maybe come and say the question again, because I can't pick it up
if
here.
RPP resides outside South Africa, whereas Deputy RPP, I take it this is a responsible person for pharmacovigilance. Please.
The deputy is in South Africa, and the main one resides here.
Outside.
I think what we highlighted at the beginning is that the main one should be residing in South Africa, not the vice versa. Because why they're saying that they're putting in the vice versa, man. They're taking the deputy being here, but the main one residing outside. So the one who will be more accountable to us is the main one, not the deputy. Because I remember the deputy, we might not even want to know if it's there. Normally the deputy, why normally there's the issue of a deputy or deputizing is in an incident or in a case whereby the main person is ill or is incapacitated or is in hospital or something, then the deputy will step in. But in that scenario, they are both alive, there's nothing wrong with them, but now the main one wants to reside outside and the deputy resides here. That is not acceptable.
Okay, while on this, because I received a question as well from IPASA to indicate that why is there a need for us to have the deputy to be in the full employment of the applicant? I think we can also address that to say, is there really a need for the deputy to also be in the full employment in South Africa? Samu, I will take this to you.
Okay. Even if we look at the licensing system, we would normally say when we check the quality management system, we say the natural person will appoint the responsible pharmacist. And then when the responsible pharmacist is not there, we'll have the deputy. Now the deputy only deputize only if the main person is there, is not there or is ill or in that instance. So also in that scenario is exactly the same case to say the main person that the authority will be recognizing is the main one and is the main one that the company will be nominating. Now the deputy company can choose not to have one, but they must make sure that is that person, there's nothing wrong will happen to that person. Actually, you can't tell the call of nature what it will do. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Samu. But I'd like to address the issue where you say the applicant can choose not to have one. So in that instance, then what happens in a situation then where there's a need for a backup?
The deputy. Normally in our documents or in any documents, the deputy is not the person that will be seen in the documents as official documents that will be sent. So if the company chooses not to have a deputy, then they know the risk that they will be having.
Okay. Colleagues from IPASA, I don't know if you answered. If you're not, please post your questions below so that we can try and address them. Okay, email addresses. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so one of the guidelines states that we should have training by a SAHPRA approved vendor. Can SAHPRA kindly clarify this? I don't think we are saying SAHPRA approved vendor. Let me clarify that. If it says that, kindly indicate which guideline and then which section. But if I remember well, it says accredited training, something of that nature. So we do not necessarily have a SAHPRA approved vendor. And we spoke to the trainings that colleagues can look at in terms of compliance with the requirements for training. I hope, Ingrid, I'm addressing your concern. And then if we are saying that, please highlight to us. You can send us an email so that we look at that and then change accordingly. Okay. Communication to industry. Okay, this is something else, but we'll look at it as well. Communication to industry, electronic submission of adverse drug reactions reports, E2B reporting We are unable to identify whether gateway has been established at SAHPRA site. No, not at the moment. We are actually working with UMC on the e-reporting by the applicants, where everything in terms of uploading, in terms of whether it's E2B or paper-based, they will be done by the applicant on their side and then sent directly to Vigiflow. Is this gateway available? We don't have a gateway as highlighted. As per the website information, companies are to share the XML to E2B email address for which they will notify acknowledgement through an email. Is this the only way to submit? At the moment, yes, but then we will be issuing a communication regarding the pilot on the industry e-reporting. I think we once had a workshop where we touched base on this, but then COVID happened and then we put that on hold. We are reviving that process. We will be communicating. Will SAHPRA acknowledge notifications of QPPV or LPVO? In what timelines? We stipulated in the guideline, I think it's within 7 days of appointment. Please forward slide deck to, okay, thank you, thank you. I'm just gonna go down and check if I'm not missing anything from anyone. I think it's best to send the ITG so it can be shared with all industry. I will also share with the ITG, thank you. In the previous versions of the guidelines, it was the RP who nominated the LPVO. With the new guidelines, it does not stay so. Can nominations be done by the QPPV from the company? Yes, it can be done by the QPPV. It can be done by the, actually, we will indicate that it must be done by the RP in line with what Mr. Mushidela has indicated. So we'll just amend to what it used to say the RP, because then there should be a line of communication between the local PV officer and the RP, and then so that we can align with all other SAHPRA requirements. Okay, if the QPPV is based elsewhere, then can LPVO based locally be the backup QPPV? If QPPV is based elsewhere, then can LPVO based locally be the backup QPPV? Lynette, just to clarify, the QPPV should be locally based. So I'm not sure when you say then the LPVO based locally can be backup QPPV. What do we mean by, because the LPVO can be their own backup? Do you mind clarifying this? I don't think I understand this. Kindly clarify so that we can respond accordingly. Information on local PV officer is provided in module 1.2.1. We'll look into that. CVs of the QPPV is part of module 1 of the registration. Okay, thank you. They usually request CV with dossier submission. I think we are, yeah, thanks for that. You are clarifying what I needed clarity on earlier. Can sister companies based in South Africa with one parent company share a PV system and LPVO? I think some you spoke to this. Do you mind to repeat? Maybe they missed that.
Yes, I did spoke to that because of, I think this is more to do with the, you have 2 licenses. Now, what you have 2 or 3 licenses from the same mother company, but you are saying if we have 3 licenses, then we need to have 1 PVO. We can look at that and say how that has impact on the system. So, but as it is now, each company will have to have its own PV officer in line to that. Thank you very much.
So even if they are using the same PV system, should they have PV officer for each sister company using the same PV system?
Yes, what we can do, we can look at how that interprets within where the companies have more than one affiliates. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that, Samu. Okay, colleagues, then this is a question that we will respond to. We do not necessarily have a ready answer for the question there regarding to sister companies using the sharing the PV system. So we will look into that as Mr. Mshitala has highlighted and respond accordingly. Ingrid, thank you. Let me see if there's any further question. Okay. May the LPVO delegate certain responsibilities, function, activities to colleagues in the global PV organization? Okay, I will respond to this. So in terms of the delegation, it's the responsibility then of the applicant to decide who they delegate which functions where. However, what's important is that the ultimate responsibility then rests with the local applicant. And then what's important is that there's a local PV officer who's based here in South Africa in the full employment of the company. So as to which company you want to delegate certain responsibilities, that's upon the applicant to decide whether they want to do it locally or globally. We cannot restrict there. Okay, when can we expect the final RMP guidelines? So, all right, so the RMP guideline, we are discussing it at the policy sometime this week. And then following then, we will look at the amendments that have been requested from the discussion. And then we should be able to publish sometime next month. Next month meaning September, yes. We do understand that regulators are looking to provide a safe and effective health products, but adding country-specific requirement, it's leading for more burdens on the manufacturers and then delay patient access to the health products. Asma, do you mind expatiating on this? I don't know if you're speaking specifically to PV inspections, which are actually required by law, or what adding specific requirements you're relating to that are actually leading to burdens. So unfortunately, as a regulator, we need to ensure that applicants do comply. And with the COVID-19, actually, it has proven that pharmacovigilance systems needs to be in place. So yeah, hence the need for us to ensure that all applicants are complying. But if it's something else that you're referring to, please clarify so that we can respond to you appropriately. What about medical devices? We have spoken to that one. Please send details, training, which were mentioned. Okay, we will do that, Kamantha. Please advise when the revised device guideline will be released. Sure. Truly, I'm unable to respond to this. I think it will be appropriate that this question be sent to medical devices and then they will respond accordingly. Can we have email address of the person who can assist? We've got the PV query email address, and that is available on the SAHPRA website as well as on the guidelines. And then you're more than welcome to send any questions relating to the systems guidelines to that email address. And okay, the email address is pvqueries@sahpra. .org.za. So there's the email address that you can use. So Sunny, kindly type it on the chat so that everybody can have it correctly. Thus, the PSMF needs to be submitted along with the applicant master file when the license is being renewed or amended. Okay, Mr. Mshitela, please come in here.
When it's amended, normally, if I get it through to the chats, when does this, because of the site master file gets submitted with the product registration. And I know with the biological, they also submit the risk management plan before the product is registered. So now, whether referring to the update, I think that one we can just maybe at a later stage to indicate when is this required to be submitted to SAHPRA. It's one of the areas that we can work on.
Okay, thanks for that. Are you going to indicate requirements for medical device different from pharma products as they are different and with different risk associated? Thank you. Mr. Mshitela, I think you touched on this. Do you mind?
Yes, as I indicated to say, we are currently looking at the pharma products, medical devices. It's another area that we're still going to be working on with a timeline to see how we're going to be dealing with it, because of this is more on the product registration. We have not yet done the product registration on medical device. But however, we have done licensing on medical device. Once we have introduced a proper system for registration of medical device, this requirement will be enforced.
Thank you, Mr. Mshitela. It was mentioned that the EU PSMF is acceptable with the local appendix. Does SAHPRA have a template on how they would like the local PSMF appendix to be presented? We did not include the template. However, we have highlighted the requirements thereof. I think this is something that was highlighted earlier. So we look at the a template for the local PSMF. Mashkwan, I hope I'm answering you. What is the period between implementation and publication of the guidelines? Samu? I think this is a general question, not necessarily relating to this.
Maybe Jon can do that.
Thank you. Mr. Puven?
Apologies, Flora. I was busy responding to somebody in the chat. Can you just
What is
respond?
the period between implementation and publication of the guidelines in general, not necessarily relating to this, because I think we spoke to this earlier.
I don't know, I'm confusing this question with what we've already answered. I don't know if what we've previously answered has answered the question.
Mr. Puven?
I'll look for the question in the chat and try and answer it. I'm trying to answer some people in the chat. Flora, I think that will help you move through this. Okay.
All right. Thank you. It's noted that a foreign MH with office in SA may use the EU Global PSMF with the addition of the South African annexure. Is it required for the SA annexure to be mentioned or referred to in the Global PSMF? Yes, please do. If you can, yes. Can you please elaborate more on the pilots that were done? What challenges did the applicants experience? Or were there common deficiencies across all the applicants? Mr. Mshitela.
Our objective when we did the pilot, it was to see if the guideline that has been published, is it feasible? Is it possible that can be implemented? That was main objective, to see what are the things that we are omitting within the guidelines that are supposed to be there. So we had picked up where the deficiencies within our guideline that we still need to work on, which is what I've highlighted at the conclusion. Now, in terms of the applicants, with the deficiencies across, they're more or less, but there's still an issue with regarding to how they need to be dealing with PSMF that is sitting global. How will it be interpreted, bringing into the local? And in the other scenario is that they have the local established systems within their own. So I think those are the areas that applicants that needs to be working on to say. All the applicants, even if you do have a global system, you need to be able to establish the local system for South Africa. And then you on that, you still need to work on how does that local report to the global, because of the adverse events. It's a global activity, but now we still need to know locally how is it being managed and how does it get reported into the global system. I think that's the challenges that we had during the deficiencies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mshitela. There's a question again that we spoke to say, does the backup QPPV or LPVO also have to reside in South Africa? And I think we spoke to this, Mashikwana, to say yes. And I highlighted this is the issue that we, or the concern that we received from the IPASA. But then Mr. Samu responded to say to this question earlier. Does the PV officer needs to be fully dedicated? I'm not sure what we mean by fully dedicated, Ben. So if you don't mind, you can explain what do you mean by fully dedicated. Okay. Would it be possible to please provide industry with a template for the PSMF summary? I think we spoke to that. My apologies. We spoke to that and we said we will look into that. Hi, Flora. May we please suggest that the presentation be shared via ITG? Okay, that's noted. Would SAHPRA be willing to consider the requirement for the backup to reside in South Africa? Could a backup person based elsewhere not be acceptable in case of temporary absence of the LPVO? Mr. Mshitela, do you mind responding to this? Because we spoke to this earlier. So now there's a request to say, since the backup is only absent, since the main person rather is only absent temporarily, shouldn't the backup be based anywhere around or be based anywhere globally?
I think what we'll also do, we'll look at this area and see how it gets interpreted, or how we care the backup when the main one is not. We will look at the area. I think, let me say to that, we'll look at how does this works on industry.
My apologies. Thanks for that, Mr. Mshitela. So I think there might be confusion on multinational companies who have an overall global QPPV often reside in the EU. The question would be if the South African entity should have two additional resources, a primary PVO and a backup. So I think the issue of the backup, it's what Mr. Mshitela just spoke to say we will look into that to see if we can't look at the backup, but then the local PV officer definitely. So we will communicate accordingly once we have looked at that. Janine, I hope you are answered. Okay, should the local PV be fully dedicated? Ben, I'm still not getting this. Samuel, are you able to respond to this? Should the local PV be fully dedicated? Do you fully understand what is required here?
If I interpret this, is what they mean is that, does it mean that if I'm employed in the company as a PV officer, my job description, because that's what we look at, the job description, will it be something that is only dedicated to PV systems only? Or can I do anything else? That is how I interpret it.
Okay, so we do have other PV officers that are not necessarily looking into PV only. For example, we've got companies where the RP is also responsible for PV. But what's important is that we have that person who's responsible for pharmacovigilance, appointed as such, and then the authority being notified of the details, the contact details of that particular person in case of need. So there are companies that actually the PV can be used, they use them for other activities as well. Will the learnings from the pilot audits be shared with us? I think Mr. Mshidala has spoken to this, so I don't know, Susan, how would you like us to share the learnings? And we can look into what is it that we can share with the applicants. Please clarify how would you prefer the learnings to be shared. Mr. Mshidala, are you willing to share the audit's findings or the learnings rather?
Okay, normally what we're doing is that we look at the broader interpretation of what was the intention of the pilot, why we were doing it. So we got our answers for that. And then we see what the shortcomings that could be within the inspection. But however, for us to say these were the actual findings, mostly what we will do is that the report will only be shared with those companies only. It cannot be something that, this was an exercise for us to see if we are able to implement the guideline as we published it.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mshidala. Mr. Sloho?
Thanks, Flo. I've stopped multitasking. Thank you for your indulgence. I think what we did discuss was that, yes, the learnings will be shared, but the how we will package that will be to say applicants should concentrate on these areas and those areas and those areas without specifically sharing findings. And that yes, they will be shared, but they'll be packaged in a manner that is very general, so as not to pinpoint current weaknesses in the pilot participants. I think that would be fair for everybody. Thanks, Flora.
Thanks, Mr. T. In the presentation, we have highlighted the area of interest where the inspections pays more attention. I think that was the intention of that particular slide, to say where the applicants should actually pay more attention in preparation for the inspections. So I hope applicants took note of that. However, we are still going to be sharing the presentation. So that slide that talks to the summary, it's actually the areas that they need to pay attention more to. So I hope that clarifies that part. Thank you for clarifying that unregistered but marketed complementary medicines are out of scope. However, if serious adverse events are received for unregistered complementary medicines, are they not required to be reported? I will respond to this. Yes, they are required to be reported because we are responsible for overseeing the performance of all products on the market. So we do have instances whereby complementary medicines have actually been reported and taken off the market as a result of adverse events. So even if they are currently unregistered, but should there be any untoward events with regards to those particular complementary medicines, so they should be reported, and then the regulator will make relevant decisions with regard to those. I hope I've answered you, Karen. Maybe please have clarifications if distributors of medical devices need QPPVs. I think the medical device issue has been attended to, but I will allow my colleagues to speak a little to it. Samu?
No, I think with medical device, we've already highlighted to say we still have a process in place for registration of medical device. But and I think, if I'm not mistaken, there is an official that has been appointed for in medical device who is also looking after issues that are relating to adverse events that are happening in medical device. Thank you.
Okay, so to answer you in short, from here, we are not necessarily requiring that. However, the medical device unit will advise accordingly. Will SAHPRA allocate a PSMF number to the South African specific annexure if we have an AU PSMF? Mr. Mshita.
I think the expectation here is that with regarding to the SMF, we're already giving a number, but now the expectation is that we should be giving a PSMF number. We will look into that area because I think in my conclusion, I highlighted that we're still working on establishing the unit for PVC unit inspection. So within that, we'll be able to give a guidance on how we're going to be handling the PSMF moving in future, numbering and referencing and all of that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mr. Then there's a question here. Applicants are required at the time of initial medicine registration application to have in place a summary of the pharmacovigilance system that describes the system that will be in place and functioning at the time of approving a medicine registration and placing of the product on the market. Are there specific requirements for this summary of the PSMF? Is there a template for the summary? Samu, do you want to take this one?
I think you can take that one.
Okay, so currently we do not necessarily have the template of the summary, but I think an overview of how you anticipate to have the system in place should suffice. But we can also look at developing a template so that it makes it easier for the applicant to respond should this be required at the time of the application for medicine registration. So Sasane, please take note of the summary of the PSMF template for the registration process. Okay. Guidelines have been published in May 2022. We are given 6 to 12 months from September for companies. Okay, this is the response. Could the meeting recording be made available for those unable to attend the meeting recordings? Can we share this, Mr. T? I think this is the second request actually for the meeting recordings.
Sorry, I didn't get the last part. You were saying?
No, they wanted to find out if we can share the meeting recordings with them for those who were unable to attend.
Well, I'm sure we can. I'm sure we can. We are all aware of the confidentiality issues, and this stays within the industry and doesn't go outside that realm. I don't see a problem with sharing recordings.
Okay,
Dion,
thank you.
what do you think?
No, I don't have a problem either, based on what you've said. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Kindly provide Q&A document if possible after this workshop. Okay. Okay, Ben, I think we have responded to your question. Can you please share the Q&A? Okay, it's the same. Okay, I think we have covered almost all questions. There's one here with regards to the PV system summary as per the IMA GVP module 2, 2B21 summary of the applicant's pharmacovigilance system, Article 83IA of Directive 2001/83C requires a summary of the applicant pharmacovigilance system to be included in the marketing authorization application, which shall include the following elements, and then they highlight them there. So yeah, we will develop a template in line with that. Thank you so much, Karen. Highly appreciated. Okay, from my side, Mr. Dion, there's no more questions, and I hope we have clarified all the questions from the applicant, except the few that we highlighted that we'll still need to have internal discussions to finalize on them and communicate accordingly. So I'll hand over the chairmanship to Mr. Dion. Thank you. Mr. Dion, oh, thank you.
Sorry, I was struggling with the buttons. Okay, no, thanks, Flo. If there were any other questions, I think they can just pop them off to you, Ms. Matlala, and then we can answer them internally and just provide feedback on that. But I really do hope this brings clarity to the applicants about questions that they may have had around these guidelines. As I said, there's going to be a time period where we're going to be before we're going to start expecting sort of full implementation, obviously, and then also any sort of enforcement action for those that do not comply. There will be a period before that becomes in. In the meantime, we are going to be doing inspections of the applicants, and obviously that will follow the normal inspection route, where there'll be notification of an inspection to the applicant and with the inspection happening thereafter. For those that have been in an inspection, you know that there's a report that comes with the response and that is reviewed, and then there will be a resolution that comes out in terms and reference to a particular regulation. But thank you very much for your time. I think we've finished an hour early, which is great. As I said, if there are any other burning questions, please don't hesitate to send them through, and we will answer you. Flora, I don't know, in terms of the logistics around the recording and presentation and those things. I'm guessing you guys will be able to figure that out between you and Samu. But I think with that, we can end the workshop. Thank you, everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you, Mr. Dion, and thank you, everyone. We will share via the ITG and the email addresses that have been provided.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.